Statistics, deciles and percentiles. Deciles and percentiles are another way of dividing the data into groups and reporting on what's normal or whether someone is very much higher or lower than normal. It really only works with very large sets of data. We're doing a small example, mostly so we understand, because in the media they'll talk a lot about being in the 40th percentile or the 10th decile, and we do need to recognise this. So deciles divide the data into 10 equal groups. And percentiles divide the data into 100 equal groups. But really, we don't tend to need to get right into the percentiles. So, for example, the 10th decile, the first decile, D1, is the same as the 10th percentile, P10. And so first decile, P10 is the 10th percentile, and they both refer to the bottom 10th or 10% of the data. So the decile is just the bottom 10th of the data. Because there's 20 scores here, the bottom 10th is these two here. And the 10th percentile means the bottom 10% of the data, and it's the same thing. So when we want to split this into deciles or percentiles, basically divide by 10. So there's 20 scores, divide by 10 gives me 2. That says there's 2 scores in every group. So, to split it into deciles, I split it up with 2 scores in every group. And that will give me 10 groups of 2. If it was 30 people, divide by 10 and get 3, it would be 3 scores in every group. So between 45 and 47 here, I've got D1 or P10. First decile or 10th percentile. They're the same things. Deciles go 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 9. And percentiles go 10, 20, 30. So it just depends which one you've been asked for. And if you look at it, you'll see I've got 10 scores here and 10 scores here. So the 5th decile, or the 50th percentile, is the median. We don't have the quartiles showing here because they're 25 and 75. But that's how we split our data into deciles. Now some questions. What is the third decile for this data? So we go to D3 and you'll see it's between 48 and 49. So just like we used to do with the median when it was between 2 numbers, we average those numbers. 48 plus 49 divided by 2. And if you want, you can realise, of course, that that's halfway between 48 and 49, so that's 48.5. Or you could grab your calculator. 48 plus 49, hit enter, and then divide by 2, 48.5. What is the 60th percentile for this data? Go to P60, halfway between 50 and 51. So that will be 50 plus 51 divided by 2. Halfway between 50 and 51 will be 50.5. So you can work it out in your head or you can use a calculator. Now, percentiles and deciles are used to report on if someone's higher or lower than what's normal. So baby Leah is 48.5 centimetres long. And the first question is, what percentage of newborns are longer than she is? So we look for where this is on the deciles. 48.5 is, as we found before, it's D3 or P30. What that means is, if a child is 48.5 on the 30th percentile or the third decile, 30% of newborn babies are shorter than she is, and the remaining 70% are longer than she is. So we've found that it's the third decile or the 30th percentile. So 30% are shorter, 70% are longer. Is she short for a newborn? I reckon if 70% of newborns are longer than she is, we could say yes, most are longer than she is. If she was in the 10th percentile, we could say she's very short for a newborn. If she was in the 90th percentile, that would say that she's longer than 90% of children, of newborns. So it lets us compare based on percentages. Find the value that cuts off the lower 60% of scores from the top 40% of scores. So, where would we get our top 40 and our lower 60? At P60, that's a bottom 60% and a top 40%, 1, 2, 3, 4. Whereas here I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 as shown by this. And that's the 60th percentile, which we just found, of 50.5. So a child of 50.5 centimetres long is the split between the bottom 60% and the top 40% of newborns. Baby Suni's length is the median score. How long is she? So we remember that P50 or D5 is the median. Halfway between 50 and 50 here is still 50, so she's 50 centimetres long. And a term that we might see in the questions is, what is the size of the 8th decile band? And that's the difference between the top score and the 8th decile of 52. So 56 minus 52 has a size of 4. So there's 4 centimetres difference between the top 80%, the top 20%, because this is 80% here, obviously. So this is the top 20%, and there's 4 centimetres difference between those. So that's a bit of an introduction to deciles and percentiles.